Mother Knows Death, starring Nicole and Jemmy and Maria Q. Kane.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to Mother Knows Death. We have some interesting stories for you today. First, we're going to start off with a reality TV star who killed her partner, and there is a very important piece of evidence missing. A healthy former UFC fighter who got sick and needed a double lung transplant. A cute little boy, oh my God, you guys should see the pictures. It's so sad, who got stung over 150 times by wasps. An ironic case of a fisherman who was able to feel exactly what a fish feels like when a giant hook goes into their mouth. And a guy who randomly killed a woman with a machete when he thought he was protecting his daughter. So let's get started with this story of this former reality TV star who killed her partner. What happened there?
Yeah, so Australian police got this call that there was a fire, and when they got there, they found this 39-year-old man dead. He was dismembered and his head was missing, and now his girlfriend, who's Tamika Chesser of Beauty and the Geek Australia, has been arrested and charged with his murder.
Yeah, so they found all of his body parts. She did admit to killing him, right? But is not saying where his head is. So currently it's missing. His family would really like it back for obvious reasons, and we don't know what she did with it. We don't know where it's at. So that's where we're at right now with this case.
Did you see how bizarre it was that she was just like, they said she was found in a catatonic state in the garden after they found him?
Well, I mean, that's probably what happened. Usually, so this is what's interesting about this case, actually, because people who are serial killers, most of the time you see in these cases that they keep a trophy sometimes. So you would keep the head, right? If you were a serial killer, maybe in a case. But in this particular case, it's more than likely a domestic situation, right? That they got in some kind of a fight and she just went nuts and killed the guy, right? So it's just really interesting to see what she did with his head, what she's doing with his head. And it's also just like above and beyond killing someone when you dismember them. I don't know if she was trying to was that the point, that she dismembered him and she was trying to set a fire to burn up his body faster, maybe? Is that what she was trying to do? I'm not sure.
Yeah, but isn't that proven? In most cases, aren't there a lot of people that do stuff like that and it never really works? Like
It doesn't work. You can never get a fire temperature that high in a house to be able to totally cremate a body down to dust. Like,
well, I think
it
that's
never
what these
works.
people
But people
think they're doing.
yeah, people think that that's what they're doing, but they don't know that you're going to do an autopsy afterwards and find out exactly how the person died. So they're still in a situation like that. There could still be soft tissue present, and they could see that the guy was dismembered before or after death, depending on what it happens. Sometimes they could see things like bullet wounds or other stab wounds that would show what his cause of death was. So I'm not exactly sure what she thought she was getting away with, but I mean, usually it's actually a little bit of a relief when somebody kills someone, dismembers them, and sets the house on fire. At least they're in a different state of mind. They're not just like going to the grocery store and food shopping or something right after something like that. So maybe that's it. I don't know.
Well, the police have released video of her walking around in the outfit she was wearing the day of the suspected killing, or the day they suspect that he was killed, because they want to try to see if she transported his head anywhere, because they can't find it, and she didn't drive or anything, so they think they're going to be able to track her movements via walking around the town.
Yeah, that's really interesting, and I'm curious what her reasoning was behind that.
Well, imagine going on your Ring doorbell footage and finding like a person walking the streets with a human head, or
we have
concealed.
cases. We have cases in the grocery room of people killing people and just walking around holding a human head by the hair. It is so disturbing, but there's been cases of that for sure. But also they were domestic cases, same, like a crime of passion, a huge fight that caused something like this to happen.
Okay, so Ben Askren, who's 40 years old, he's a former UFC fighter, boxer, and Olympic wrestler. A couple weeks ago, he seemingly got a staph infection that turned into pneumonia. He got really sick. His wife had posted that he was in the hospital, and now he needs a double lung transplant.
Yeah, it went down really quick, too, within a couple weeks. So apparently he's a UFC fighter, so he is in good shape. He was in good health before this happened. And sometimes people could just get staph infections and they could get really nasty because that bacteria could be nasty, especially depending on what kind of strain it is. So sometimes we have staph normally inside of our nostril and stuff, and it could get into our bodies that way. Other times, like with IV drug users, especially, are at an increased risk of getting these kinds of infections because there's staph on the skin, and then using dirty needles repeatedly can also cause this type of infection in a person. And I don't think that that was happening with him. This is just something, a freak thing that happened. He might have just because he's so young and stuff, he might have just thought that he had a typical cold and didn't go get treatment until it was far more advanced than it should have been. And what happens is that the staph bacteria causes something called necrotizing pneumonia, which is it kills the lung tissue, and it also causes like a pus. And once, if you do survive that, once it starts healing, the lung heals with a lot of fibrous scar tissue, causing pulmonary fibrosis. And you could also get something called bronchiectasis when the airways are permanently dilated. And these two things prevent oxygen exchange. And ultimately, that's what your lungs do, and you can't live without them. You could live with one lung, but if he had double pneumonia in both lungs, then that means the only way that he was going to be able to live for the rest of his life, he's so young, is to get new lungs. So with that, if you need lungs to live and you're getting two lungs from someone, that means that you're getting them from a dead person, someone that died likely in a car accident or something like that, which is why organ donation is so important, because if someone dies in a car accident, their lungs are perfectly fine. Now they could get transplanted into a guy like this. So he still has a long road ahead of him. But it's good that, I mean, he was put on the transplant list not too long ago and got lungs already.
That's what I was going to ask about, is that, so I'm not really sure how it works with lungs, because I know some people that are on the transplant list are on it sometimes for years. Like, could they theoretically keep him alive on machines until they're ready, or what is
in that condition? Not, I mean, it's not good. It wouldn't be good to be on a ventilator like that for years, even if that was possible. But there's a lot of different things they look at when they do a transplant. So number one, they just look at the size of a person. Just think, this guy, he might be kind of a bigger guy because he's a UFC fighter. He might have a bigger chest or something. I'm not sure of his body build, but they look at, can the lungs actually fit into the chest cavity? Because, like, let's pretend a guy that's like 6'5" dies in a car accident. Are you going to put those lungs inside of like your tiny frame? No, it's not going to fit. You know what I mean? So they look at just like physical size. Is it even going to fit? And then they check the blood type and they do the tissue type just to make sure that you're going to have the least chance of rejection. And then they look at things like, how bad do you need these lungs? Like, can you live another year with assistance or not? And he probably was really, really bad. Like, no matter what medications they gave him, ventilation, everything, like, he was going to die imminently. So that's why they decided to bump him up kind of to get these lungs. And it all worked out. So that's the first part of the battle. And then the next part is obviously, like, lung transplants have a higher risk of rejection, mainly because of it's a very intricate surgery. When you breathe in air, your lungs take in the oxygen, which then goes into your bloodstream, and that's how the oxygen gets all over your body. So once that blood goes to all of the organs, it goes back to the heart, and then it goes through the heart and it goes back into the lungs to pick up more oxygen. So those two organs work together, and if one's not working correctly, the other one's not going to work correctly. So it's just a very intricate surgery. On top of that, when people get organ transplants, they get put on so many kinds of drugs because they don't want their immune system to reject these new organs. Transplants sometimes, especially too, in otherwise young, healthy people like this guy, like, his immune system's awesome. So it's just going to want to attack these new lungs. So they really need to suppress it. And when they do, unfortunately, he's at risk of getting infections that normal people wouldn't get, and it's especially bad to get one of these infections in these new lungs and you're trying to get to stick, you know? So he has a long road ahead with the rejection, with the potential risk of infections, but there are people that get this surgery done and go on to live a long time after that. So we're just hoping for the best with him.
This episode is brought to you by The Gross Room.
So we've been talking all about these high profile death dissections that we've been doing on cruise ship injuries and deaths, and it is pretty eye-opening to say the least. At least one thing I thought was I'm glad I didn't start researching this before we went on the cruise. But so we had this week we had all of the natural things that could happen to you, infections, parasites, believe it or not. And then next week we're going to go into all of the juicier stuff with accidents and even homicides, believe it or not. Maria's going to get into, we've done hundreds of these high profile death dissections and celebrity death dissections in the gross room, and Maria's getting into the mortician series coming up soon. So that's something to look out for. So check out the gross room.
Yeah, head over to thegrossroom.com to sign up.
Okay, so oh my God, this cute little boy. Did you see the pictures of him getting stung by all of these wasps? He just looks so sad.
I know, they made me so sad. He's so cute in the pictures, and his, like, you know, little baby fat skin is, like, covered in these stings. It's horrible.
And all he was doing was, like, riding his little bike or, it seems like a,
he was riding in a toy car and then accidentally hit the nest. And they just went crazy. He was stung over 150 times by wasps. I can't fathom how painful this is. When I was a little kid, we were at Aunt Tina's lake house. And I don't know why. I was like using my kid brain walking to the car to get something, and her driveway was rocks. And you know, when you're a little kid, I'm like, oh, if I close my eyes, it won't hurt to walk on rocks barefoot. Like, that makes any sense. But I was doing that and my hand hit a bee nest and I got stung 3 times, and that was horrible. I can't imagine 150 times when you're such a little baby.
And these are probably way more painful and intense than a regular bee sting for sure.
Oh, yeah.
We have these in my backyard actually, because they make their nests inside of the ground. So they were right before we got the mulch replaced this year. We had a huge problem and I kept spraying, and I almost called an exterminator because they're near the pool, and I'm like, I don't need all of these dangerous bees or wasps around the pool, you know. But it's scary because the kids, where the kids jump into the pool, they're on the ground there in a little hole, like you could barely see them. And these kinds of wasps are the most likely to sting people, so they're kind of like looking around, waiting to get disturbed, and they attack. And it's not like a normal bee sting where the stinger will fall out. Like, it can go in several times and they just go nuts. Like, once they do it, they just can repeatedly sting someone.
Yeah, and obviously because of how extreme this was, he started having problems too.
Well, the mom took him, obviously this is what you should do in any case, is that she took him to the hospital right away to get checked out, and they don't have an anti-venom for this, so they just do, okay, well, we're just going to treat him for his symptoms right now, which is giving him Benadryl and just, you know, just keeping an eye, making sure his vitals are okay. And he was fine, so they discharged him, but you could have a reaction to the toxins hours later, and that's what happened in this case. It most commonly occurs in situations like this where you're getting, if you don't have an allergy, because everybody doesn't have an allergy to it, but when you get stung 150 times, especially when you weigh 30 some pounds, 40 pounds, you know, when you're like a little kid like that, it's just too much venom in your body for your little, especially the little tiny body, to handle. And he started having a reaction at home. His mom noticed that his skin was yellow. Like, how traumatizing is that?
I know.
Brought him to the hospital right away, and then they medevaced him to another hospital, which is even scarier. So now he seems to be doing okay. They just kind of have to treat him for what's happening, but he was going into liver failure. That's why he was yellow. He was actually jaundice and kidney failure. So they were able to get it under control in the ICU, and he seems to be recovering, but it's so sad because it's not really, it's not really anything. What could the mom have done differently? Like, it's just you're outside in nature and this stuff happens. There's bugs. Like,
Yeah, it's just purely an accident. I mean, there's nothing you could do. Hopefully, because he was so little, he won't have any memory, or hopefully he won't have any long-term complications from this, but it's super scary.
why are they so angry?
I don't know. What's
They
going
seem
on
they
in their
seem like they're
life?
like, yeah, they I don't know what's going on in their life. They're so angry. You want to hear something interesting that I learned though? They said that if you get stung by this and you're home, and like obviously if you get stung once and you know you're not having an allergy, because there's a difference between, like, this kid didn't have what you would consider to be an anaphylactic shock, which is what you would see when you have a severe allergy. Although he might be at an increased risk for that in the future now because of this happening. He was having a reaction to the toxin, which was a little bit different. But if you just get stung and you're kind of like, ow, that really hurts, and there's like a small hive around it, you're fine or whatever. But they said that if you make a mixture with meat tenderizer and put it around the sting site, that it could actually help like dissolve the venom that's in the localized reaction there, which I
wow.
thought was interesting. And then it said if you don't have meat tender, because I was like, I don't have meat tender. I don't even know. I don't have it at my house. But they said that you could use deodorant that's aluminum based or baking soda. So I thought that that was just like an interesting little tidbit that I never would have thought of if I got stung like that.
Yeah, I don't think I would think of that either. So hopefully it does help somebody listening to
Yeah,
this.
this story, it does scare me a little bit though, because I said I do have them in my yard and I'm constant like when I was spraying them in the beginning of the season, I'm actually surprised that I didn't get attacked because there was probably 10 to 20 of them like swarming around the area. I kept spraying with that stuff, which they were impervious to, by the way. So I'm glad. I feel like just getting the new mulch poured over their nest kind of helped. And maybe it took a while for the poison to kill them. I don't know.
Yeah. Also, side note, if you hear background noise, it's thundering really bad right now, so I might have to leave and go in my bunker, but no, it's super loud. I don't know if you could hear it on your end, but
Well, I have it at my house too.
oh yeah. It's about to storm really bad. So I've been hearing it brewing in the background, and now it just like was so loud right next to this window.
Yeah, I was just driving. Well, I just texted you when I just came home from the doctor, and I texted you and was like, "Oh, it looks angry out," which is it's like kind of early for that today, but it's the season. It is so swampy and gross. I did post a picture on my Instagram. Did you see it of the condensation on the inside
yeah.
of our house? It's just so gross because
No.
of the heat outside and the cold air conditioning.
And I know the weather can't be perfect, but I'm checking the radar. When I was at your house yesterday, for example, like I'm checking the radar and it says it's going to hit around 5 o'clock and then we're not going to have any rain the rest of the night. I could not sleep all night. It was so loud, the thunder and the rain smacking against the window. And this morning I check and it says it's not going to rain until 6 o'clock and it's thundering horribly right now. So like I haven't even looked outside yet. I'm sure it's downpouring.
We always had a saying in pathology that like weather forecasters are like radiologists. No offense to any radiologists listening, that they could just like guess something. It's just funny because some of the diagnosis that we would see would just be like, can't rule out cancer, can't rule out infection, can't rule out other neoplasm, and you're just like, oh, so it just could be whatever. Like you just throw out a bunch of stuff and you don't really have any true responsibility when it's not that or whatever. But not to say that they don't. It was just like a funny joke that we said. But yeah, so it's the same here. So we know that Maria is like always on storm alert. She's got one time there was this tornado and she was sending me pictures like she's tracking it on the app to see where it's at and stuff. And
well, it landed in the town next to me. It's not like it was
So
like
she has-
50 miles away.
so we always joke that she has a bunker that she goes to when it rainstorms.
All right, let's get on to this next one.
You should set up like a little podcast area there so we could get live updates.
Yeah, well, if my internet and stuff goes out, how are you going to get live updates? What that day in particular that you're talking about was so scary because it was like green outside. The tornado did touch down in the town next to me. My phone went on SOS mode. Thank God my power didn't go out and I had
All
my
of these
Wi-Fi.
people in the Midwest think you're a little whiny bitch.
Well, I'm not used. We never had them ever.
All
I
right, well, we
remember
have them
one.
now, so it's part of life.
Well, yeah, I'm just not used to it because I remember one my
Did you
entire life.
have you
until I
seen the
moved here.
videos of like there was like a crazy tornado in South Dakota or something this week? Like our little F1 minus things are nothing compared to these things, and this is like people's everyday.
But those people have like legit.
They have an
bunkers.
underground like Wizard of Oz style thing that they could go in.
Didn't
and
I
stuff.
send you my girl that was making a storm shelter into a storm stunner? She like wallpapered her bunker and stuff. That's gonna be me.
Yeah,
Okay.
exactly. All right.
This 31-year-old fisherman from Louisiana caught a marlin, which is a large fish with a needle nose, and as he was unhooking it over the side of the boat, the fish starts freaking out and then ends up piercing him in his throat.
Yeah, it's like kind of ironic, right? I was like, this is exactly what would happen if you caught a fish. It would go through their mouth because they're eating bait off of it, right? So it stung this guy in his mouth. And when he went to the hospital, obviously he went to the hospital right away because there was like this serious trauma done to him. They x-rayed him and they didn't see anything. So they just thought, okay, this thing stabbed this guy and we're just going to have to repair the injury. And when they did a CT scan, that's when they saw that a piece of the what is it called? The bill, a marlin's bill or a barb. It's just the piece of the the sharp piece of the nose was still inside of his mouth, and it was puncturing it, so it went through the back of his throat, which, just think about that. That just sounds so painful. And it went into his spinal canal, but it didn't sever his spinal cord, thank God, because he could be paralyzed or even dead because of that. And it was so high up, it was right where your skull meets your spinal column. So if he became paralyzed, he would have been paralyzed from the neck down. Like, it would have been really terrible. Instead, he's lucky to be alive. They were able to remove it, and they put him on some hardcore antibiotic treatment for two reasons. Because number one, you have all this bacteria in your mouth that has now been introduced into your cerebral spinal space where the fluid is, the fluid around the spinal cord, which also goes in the brain. So you definitely don't, that whole area is sterile. You don't want bacteria going anywhere near your brain like that. Number two, marine animals are like, they have a whole bunch of different weird bacterias and stuff that you definitely don't want introduced near your brain. So they really wanted to, and that would be on the marlin that went into that weird space on this freak accident. So he stayed in the ICU, but he was released with no complications and he's fine. What a crazy story to tell.
Yeah, it's a crazy story to tell. I wonder, do you think they let him keep the piece that was lodged in his throat?
I don't know. I think like some people would want it, and then other people would be like, I don't want to see that thing. Like in Happy Gilmore when that alligator had taken off the hand of Chubbs.
Yeah.
And then Happy Gilmore thought that it was a good idea to kill the alligator and put its eyeball like in a jar and give it to Chubbs as a present.
It was the whole head, wasn't it?
Was it?
I thought he put the whole head, so when he opened it, he like screamed and ran out.
No, okay. That's why I got confused, because Chubbs carried around the jar with the eye, because he was like, he bit my hand, but I got his eye. Remember, he was like showing the jar. Okay, so then Happy Gilmore was like, oh, I have a present for you. I killed that bastard, and like, here's his head, right? And then Chubbs like freaks out and falls out the window and dies because he just like couldn't handle seeing it. It triggered some PTSD in him or something. So imagine having that barb in your house. Like the guy might walk by it and get like triggered or something.
You know what's weird is in LBI last week, another person got stabbed by a needlefish. I just thought it was so bizarre that I thought that was the same story at first, and I was like, hold on a second. Different situations.
It's just kind of ironic. Like, I wonder if this guy sits there and thinks like, I was saying this about fishing the other day, like, and I'm not, like I always say, I'm not some like animal loving hippie person and stuff. I think like I eat fish, fine, but like if you're just fishing for sport, you're just kind of like piercing their face just to be like, hi, I caught this, and throw it back. It's just kind of fucked up, you know what I mean? So that's like what happened with this guy. Like ultimately he's fine. He's not going to die, but he got pierced in his throat, right? It just doesn't feel good.
Yeah, it's nuts. All right, so this story is so bizarre. So this woman called the non-emergency line for police and claimed that her ex-boyfriend was on his motorcycle riding up and down her street trying to get her to come outside. So before the cops got there, this woman's dad went outside, and when the motorcycle went by again, he threw a machete at the bike, but it turns out it wasn't the ex-boyfriend. It was a totally random couple, and he hit this woman on the back of the bike and killed her.
What the hell are people thinking? Even if it was the ex-boyfriend, right?
Why
and
are
you
you
want to
throwing
throw
a
a machete?
machete?
Yeah, like, and you whatever. I mean, listen, like the guy could have done some horrible stuff. So you want to throw a machete at this guy, and like, I don't know what you think was going to happen when you're throwing a giant knife flying through the air, but okay. But there was a woman on the bike. Like, you didn't think that there was a possibility that you would hit her, who's completely innocent in the situation.
Well, maybe
anyway?
they thought it was like his new girlfriend or something.
Yeah,
but regardless,
that doesn't mean that she deserved to die. Like, come on.
none of it makes sense. I don't understand why we're just throwing machetes at people.
It would be mean if you threw like a baseball bat just to try to knock the guy off, but a freaking machete? Who even has a machete?
They said actually they don't even know if the boyfriend was in the area at all.
Oh yeah,
So, like,
they're just like, yeah, we don't even know if it was him ever driving down the street. It was just this other guy. He killed a person. Like, and then he's just like, yeah, I'm sorry. Like, how do people live?
so then he tried to hide the machete, but then later reveal where it was. So this guy ends up getting charged with murder, tampering with evidence, and assault. So good one. Like, what were you doing regardless if it was the ex-boyfriend? Like, you were still gonna potentially kill him and then have the same charges.
Unless you're like a gardener or you're harvesting sugarcane or something like that. Like, why would you?
Sugarcane.
Because all I think about is people in fields cutting down heavy stems of something. I just don't understand what the point of owning a machete would ever be.
I think
living
more
in
people
America.
have machetes than you think. They're very popular in the Philadelphia area.
But why? It's a weapon to hurt someone with, I guess. It's just like having a gun, I suppose. But
It's like a weird collector's thing for...
Yeah, I really don't understand. When you have things like that, it's just like no good's gonna come out of it. You know what I mean? And
Obviously.
I wouldn't look at that as like a gun. I understand you want to protect yourself. It's hidden, and if you follow the rules or whatever, it's, you know. But like I guess when you pull the gun on somebody, you're intending to kill or hurt them. You don't want to use something like a machete as a scare tactic, and it's just really bizarre to me. What part of the country did this happen in?
Ohio.
I mean,
it
maybe
doesn't
he
make
was
any
a
sense.
farmer and he was harvesting stuff. I don't
No. Like,
I don't want
Florida,
to judge.
Florida, maybe, because they have, like, tropical landscape down there. Like, this makes no sense. I think this was just a weirdo that just had one, and clearly he wasn't in his right mind.
Or you want to crack open a fresh coconut or something, like.
Yeah, this is a weird,
I don't get
weird situation. All right, guys. Well, we will be in Atlanta a week from today. So you're going to want to buy tickets for our meet and greet on the 11th or tickets to the Crime and Wine. There's 2 sessions on the 12th at the Georgia
and
Snyder
the
Museum.
proceeds from the sales of the tickets are going to the Cold Case Institute, Cheryl McCollum's Cold Case Institute. So it's going towards a good cause to help solve crimes that are unsolved. And yeah, you can meet me and Maria. We're going to have some books, and you get to meet Cheryl too, which she's like, I'd rather meet her than us.
Yeah, we're going to have a really fun time.
She's so cool. She's the podcast host of Zone 7. We've had her on the show a bunch of times, but also we love her. She's on Nancy Grace sometimes, and she's awesome. She's a very good storyteller.
Yeah, so please head over to Apple or Spotify and leave us a nice review, or head over to our YouTube channel and subscribe. And if you have a story for us, please submit the stories at motherknowsdeath.com.
Thank you for listening to Mother Knows Death. As a reminder, my training is as a pathologist assistant. I have a master's level education and specialize in anatomy and pathology education. I am not a doctor, and I have not diagnosed or treated anyone, dead or alive, without the assistance of a licensed medical doctor. This show, my website, and social media accounts are designed to educate and inform people based on my experience working in pathology so they can make healthier decisions regarding their life and well-being. Always remember that science is changing every day, and the opinions expressed in this episode are based on my knowledge of those subjects at the time of publication. If you are having a medical problem, have a medical question, or are having a medical emergency, please contact your physician or visit an urgent care center, emergency room, or hospital. Please rate, review, and subscribe to Mother Knows Death on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, or anywhere you get podcasts. Thanks.